Hi, good morning, and thank you for joining us for a briefing on Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program, otherwise known, as you'll hear us say, the CDMRP, and the Melanoma Research Program, otherwise known as the MRP. From fiscal years 2009 to 2018, melanoma researchers were eligible to receive defense funding through the Peer-Reviewed Cancer Research Program, or the PRCRP. Over that time period, the Department of Defense, through the PRCRP, funded $52.5 million in melanoma research. In September 2018, because of the work of MRF advocates and the rallying, we were able to make melanoma a national priority, and we won. Congress passed and the president signed into the law the fiscal 2019 Defense Appropriations Bill, which included a separate line item for defense-funded melanoma research and provided $10 million in appropriations for the program. This $10 million line item is the first time melanoma research received dedicated Department of Defense funding and represented a historic moment in the melanoma community. The following year, we secured $20 million. And then last year, we secured $30 million, all with the help of our advocates. To give us all a better understanding of the CDMRP and the MRP, I am thrilled to welcome back, I believe it's her third or fourth year here, Dr. Donna Kimbark. Dr. Kimbark is the program manager for the Peer-Reviewed Cancer Research Program at the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program. She's always had a love for science and discovery. At first, she thought she would go into medicine, modeling her career goals after her beloved pediatrician. As she studied, Donna realized how much more she could do for the cancer community by pursuing a degree in research science. Dr. Kimbark received her PhD in molecular pharmacology and cancer therapeutics from the State University of New York at Buffalo Roswell Park Cancer Center Division in 1996. Always dedicated toward a future that decreased cancer burden, Donna had the opportunity in 2008 to become a program manager, leading a team toward cancer care solutions for service members and their families, veterans, and the American public. Currently, she leads the program teams for the Peer-Reviewed Cancer Research Program and the Melanoma Research Program. For her efforts, Dr. Kimbark has been awarded the Commander's Award for Civilian Service. Her areas of expertise include cancer, therapeutics, pharmacology, proteomics, and obviously, I don't know, I'm curious to learn about that, and scientific research administration. I will now pull up her presentation and have everyone welcome Dr. Kimbark for this next session. One second, this virtual nature here gets a little tricky.
Okay, while you do that, I will thank you for the introduction. I'm very excited to be able to come to you virtually. I never thought that after last year, when we had our meeting last year and I was able to give you all a virtual hug, you know, as I was standing in front of you all, that we would actually have a virtual hug now. So let's just all remember that we're all in this together, and that we are going to make it through this pandemic, and we're going to find some really great solutions for melanoma. So let's go to the next slide, Casey. Okay, so first of all, I really like to address who we are. You know, a lot of times when I talk about who we are, I'm going to get into this in a moment, but I talk about who the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program is. But I want to take a step back and really talk about who we are as the people, the vision, and the mission. In the center stage here is Steven Silverstein, who is part of the MRF. He's the very first person I met from MRF, and he's a programmatic panel member. I am privileged to be able to work with him on a yearly basis. We work together to make this program the best that it possibly can be. He was part of the Peer-Reviewed Cancer Research Program. He came over to the Melanoma Research Program. He's a stage 4 survivor, and really an inspiration to me and to others. Here on the slide also is Erin McKinney. I introduced you to her last year. She had melanoma and unfortunately succumbed to her disease. And then we also have Samantha and Valerie Guild, who are part of AIM at Melanoma. And both have been programmatic panel members, either for PRCRP or for MRP. And they were family members of Charlie. Charlie was Samantha's sister and Valerie's daughter, who at a very young age succumbed to melanoma. Now, Samantha is continuing her mother's legacy to be part of the melanoma community, to lead AIM at Melanoma, and to continue on with the vision and mission of our melanoma research program. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about now is a little bit of the vision and mission of the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program. As I told you, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about CDMRP first, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Melanoma Research Program. Our vision is to transform healthcare for service members in the American public through innovative and impactful research. Our mission is really to responsibly manage collaborative research that discovers, develops, and delivers healthcare solutions for that same population. And how do we do this? We do this by funding groundbreaking, high-impact research. Next slide. Now, as I said, one of the things that we really do want to look at is how does CDMRP fit into all of this? Who is CDMRP? I said that I would introduce you to this. We're part of the Department of Defense, part of the Army's Futures Command, and specifically the Medical Research and Development Command. We sit up at Fort Detrick in Maryland most of the time. Right now, I'm in my house. So let's go to the next slide. A little bit about history of CDMRP and a little bit about how big we are now. Right now I have the FY20 programs on this slide, not the FY21 programs, which are even more. Okay, so let's just talk about where we are right now. That we manage extramural research programs that are directed by Congress. Congress is the one that makes these decisions to include these programs under the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs. We don't do this. They actually come to us and assign these to us. So we answer that call. And this started all back in 1992 with breast cancer advocates. Congress specifies the focus areas such as melanoma, but CDMRP in each one of our programs determines how we're going to deal with the strategy, the investment strategy, and how we're going to select those best projects. So it really is a unique partnership between the military, scientists, disease survivors, consumers, and policymakers, what I like to call patient advocates. Okay, so currently our director is Colonel Sarah Goldman, and we have about $1.3 billion for funding in research, both intramural and extramurally. So let's go to the next slide. And let me tell you a little bit about why melanoma is important for the Department of Defense. And I think this is really the key slide for all the slides that I'm going to talk to you today. This is really one of the key slides. I'd say it was in the top three. Active duty service members are out there all the time, and they are protecting us in American interests across the entire world, right? They're deployed everywhere, especially in areas of high UV radiation and in areas where they may come in contact with other carcinogens as well. Over 80% of the active duty service enlisted members are below the age of 39. And over 40% are below the age of 24. Why is that important? It's important because of the fact that events that cause cancer usually happen very early in life. Those carcinogens or cancer-inducing events happen very early in life. When we look at the active duty service members, and we can see that a good, huge grouping of them are in this area that can cause long-term issues, such as the development of cutaneous melanoma and other types of melanoma as well. Now, there's been studies done with skin care and skin cancer in the military and how the military actually interacts with the compliance for different types of skin protection. And what they found was that 67% of the U.S. Air Force members, personnel, are constantly involved in direct sun exposure, with less than 11% of recipients use sunscreen while working in the sun. 11%. Think about that. And then another study of 212 veterans showed 84% worked in a desert climate during the military service, and 13% reported routine sunscreen. So this is really important. And when we think about this for a cutaneous melanoma, I think this really drives home the point of why this is important. It's also important for other types of melanoma as well, because we don't know what exposures might actually lead to those types of melanomas as well. So it's something that we really have to pay attention to. So let's go to the next slide. When we go to the next slide, this is one of the top ones too that I want to talk to you about as well. This is melanoma, the melanoma research program. Now, Casey already talked to you a little bit about how much money we've already put into melanoma and other skin cancers through the peer review cancer research program. In FY19, when I talked to you last year, we had just funded awards in FY19. We had $10 million and we have 15 projects funded. Now for FY20, we had an appropriation of $20 million. Now, the programmatic review, which will select and recommend what will be funded, is next week, actually. So we're very excited to see what we're going to have funded there. We have a couple of new types of award mechanisms, such as technology development for melanoma, as well as mid-career accelerator awards, so that we can keep those really excellent investigators in melanoma instead of jumping over to one of the other cancers where there might be funding for them. So we want to keep them here. So that's what we're doing for next week. And for FY21, our appropriation is $30 million, and we will launch that cycle on the 12th of March. So I do want to point out that our vision for the melanoma research program is to prevent melanoma initiation and progression. If we don't have melanoma, then we don't have a problem, right? So we really want to prevent initiation and progression. And how we do that is through earlier intervention to enhance mission readiness for U.S. military personnel and to diminish the disease burden on service members, veterans, and their families, as well as the American public. Now, there's multiple types of melanoma, and we do recognize that from cutaneous, acral, mucosal, ocular, pediatric, and other types as well. So let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit about what has been funded for FY19. When we talk about what has been funded for FY19, we had a couple of different types of award mechanisms, such as the Concept Award and the Idea Award. And those are more innovative-based seed types of mechanisms, right? And the Team Science Award and the Translational Research Award, those are more near-term, exciting type of award mechanisms that can really shift the focus of the program. So what we have, what I've shown there in that pie is what we're funding, okay, from that FY19, those 15 awards. We're funding a bunch of cell biology, and you might say, why is that? Why is cell biology? Because cell biology, you have to get into the basics in order to get into the translation on the clinic. Now, somebody just asked, why do you think the military is unable to better encourage sunscreen use? I think it's because of the fact, I can tell you a little bit of the story, and this was not military type story. My nephew, 20 years old, very, very fair. My husband's family is very fair. They're all, from the Northern European areas, are very fair. And we were all in Florida once, and I told him as he walked out of the house, I said, did you put on your sunscreen? And he said, I don't need that. And I was like, yeah, you do. And he was like, I don't need it. And he just walked out. And I just had this feeling that, you know, when people are very young, they think that they are invincible. And so I really kind of think that part of that is invincibility, especially when you're in the military, is that you really feel like you're, you know, you really have that, you're this strong, courageous person, and you really have to keep that in your heart and your soul in order to do the mission. So I think that there's a little bit of that invincibility. But also, I do think that part of it is, you know, they're out there in the sun for long periods of time. They have a lot to do, and there is a little bit of loss in that, you know, in the chain of command of keeping that up. I think it really has to do with the chain of command as well. The chain of command really has to push it a little bit more. So that's something that is being discussed. So let's go to the next slide. I do want to highlight some of the FY19 awards that we had so that you have an idea of what we're trying to fund. If we go to the next slide, Casey. So what we have here is just 3 of the awards, 3 of 15 awards, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about them. One of the research areas, go back, please, Casey, is the mechanisms of UV-induced melanoma initiation. Back one slide, Casey, please. So yeah, no, forward. Thank you. That's it. Stay. I'm sorry. This always happens. Don't worry about it. The mechanisms of UV-induced melanoma initiation. When we talk about melanoma, especially cutaneous melanoma, one of the things we talk about is the idea that UV, it's all UV radiation, and UV is causing damage to the DNA, and that's it, right? So, but when we look at the identifying whether or not UV is doing other things as well, because, you know, there are times when the DNA is damaged, but it's repaired. So is the UV doing other things? So one of the things that Dr. Grossman and Bach Bracklin and Justin Torres is looking at is identifying non-mutagenic mechanisms by which UV exposure initiates melanoma. Are there other ways that it causes it? So they're looking at that, which we think is very, very interesting and will support and really push forward where we're going. And this might be important for other types of melanoma other than cutaneous as well. Understanding signaling matrix for uveal melanoma, melanoma of the eye, by Dr. Applin from Thomas Jefferson University. Here, the study really expects to pinpoint kinases that might represent potential therapeutics in the future to decrease the event of metastatic uveal melanoma that usually gets to the liver. And then finally, Dr. Elmore and Shapiro, I think, are really doing something that's very interesting and looking at improving the diagnosis of melanoma and precursor lesions among veterans. How they're doing this is developing an artificial intelligence techniques and doing teledermopathology, so that they have a better understanding of how human viewing influences the diagnosis and how future decisions can be made using an AI and machine learning tools to supplement human-led diagnosis, because there is a lot of variability when you look at one pathologist's view of a slide as opposed to another pathologist's view. So we really do need to understand that a little bit better. And that's one of the things that Dr. Elmore and Shapiro are doing. So let's go to the next slide. Now, you already had a little bit of a preview of this, and that is what our challenge statement is for FY20. So what I'm introducing you now is what we're doing for FY20. When we're looking at FY20, we're looking at our challenge statement, and our challenge statement is really to stop melanoma in its tracks. Okay, prevent melanoma initiation and progression. And this is just an example of melanoma pathogenesis. It doesn't always happen in this way. We know that sometimes there doesn't seem to be a precursor lesion, it just appears. Other times there seems to be a nodule, and then it moves from a novice to all the way to melanoma. So there's many different ways that this could happen, but we want to stop it somehow in its tracks. So far we need to know what its tracks are, and we need to know how to stop it. So that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to prevent melanoma before it actually initiates and stop its progression if it does initiate. So let's go ahead to the next slide. Now, our focus areas this year for FY20 that we're going to be reviewing next week is prevent melanoma initiation factors such as UV radiation, minimal residual disease. As you know, if you've been cured, you don't want anything left in your body, so because you don't want a recurrence. So we want minimal residual disease. We're very interested in bioengineering, that is bringing together and bringing people from bioengineering into the melanoma research realm so they could address diagnostics, high-risk markers, dormancy, and metastasis, as well as we also are understanding the tumor microenvironment, because we really do believe that the tumor microenvironment does influence whether or not the tumor cells will actually develop and move forward. So that's really important for us to understand how that tumor is sitting in normal cell tissues, how those normal cell tissues are interacting with it. And that's important for, you know, for turning on hot and turning on cold tumors as well. So we also want to do prevention. We also want to do therapeutic prevention as well. How do we prevent that initiation of melanoma, and also how do we prevent it from progressing? So let's go to the next slide. And this is a little bit of a highlight of what we've actually received in each one of these funding areas so far. You see, we've received quite a bit in therapeutic prevention and in bioengineering, as well as some of the other areas as well. It's all kind of moved out. We do have a low amount in initiation factors, but quite a bit in bioengineering. So we're really looking to change the field technology-wise, okay, and therapeutic-wise, because that really touches patients the most, we think. So let's go forward to the next slide. Now, one of the things we want to talk about is, where do you fit in? What are you doing? One of the most important parts of this is to really think about what I said at the very beginning of this, and that is, this is really initiated by Congress. Everything is initiated by Congress. And why does Congress initiate this? Because they have listened to their constituents, that being you, to change the way that we're going to look at melanoma. How are we going to look at melanoma? Are we going to continue on where we are today, or are we going to move forward and do something differently? So that's one of the things that Congress does. Congress gives us yet another avenue to attack melanoma, rather than just in the NCI or by other funding organizations. Congress gives us the ability to add in melanoma. And melanoma now is a focus, a 100% focus of this money. So with Congress and the DoD working together, with patient advocates bringing that note to Congress, telling Congress we need this, and other government agencies and researchers all working together. One of the things I want to point out is that NCI is not a competitor to us. We are trying to fill niches that they cannot fill with their funds. So we're looking at areas that they're not funding, and we're funding those areas so that we can all accomplish the main goal. And the main goal is to really cure melanoma, right? Or prevent it. So we're all working together on this. So let's go to the next slide. One of the questions that people ask me is, why are patient advocates a part of this at all? And I'm just stunned when somebody asks me that, completely stunned. Why not? My question is always, why not? These are the people that are most affected by this, number one. Their families are affected by it, number two. It changes your life when you've been diagnosed with a cancer. I know this personally. I've been diagnosed with cancer myself. My mother's been diagnosed with cancer multiple times. So it is a why not. And also, you're taxpayers. You get a say in how this government is run. It's we the people, right? So that's one of the things I want to talk about here. CDMRP has always been about the advocate and the grassroots efforts that are led to these targeted research fundings and the creation of CDMRP. It's really always been about patient advocates. The voices and experiences of the consumers play a pivotal role in the growth of CDMRP. Patient advocates participate at every level of CDMRP, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Over 7,000 consumers representing over 1,000 organizations have served in CDMRP peer and programmatic review panels. So let's go to the next slide. When we go to the next slide, all of those orange arrows on this slide show you where you're part of the process. This is our programmatic cycle. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but it really shows you how the congressional appropriation appears because of consumers like you. We put together our stakeholders meeting and our vision setting meeting, which is our investment strategy, all the way through to our peer and programmatic review, where we decide where we're going to fund and what we're going to fund. All has input from consumers and patient advocates. 100% important for us to do this, because otherwise, what's the point, right? It's all about the patients. Let's go to the next slide. And, you know, some people ask me, well, how can I be more involved? I want to go to the Hill maybe, but how can I really be involved in the peer review or the programmatic review or what's being selected? What I say is come to us. You can be a peer reviewer. At peer review, you're going to look at an entire application. You can look at the impact statement that each one of the applicants are going to offer you an impact statement. And they're going to say, this is why this is important. And you can say, well, I believe you, and I think that this is important because, or you can say, you know, you're kind of hitting the mark, missing the mark entirely. So it's really about bringing your viewpoint to the peer review as well as your community's viewpoint. It's important to bring in the community's viewpoint because you are a representative of your community. Think about it that way. So that's when you're really into the weeds of being a part of our program. You are a part of the program itself. So let's go to the next slide. At the next tier of review, programmatic review, is where we actually make those recommended for funding lists and so on. And I talked to you a little bit about Steve Silverstein, who actually is part of our programmatic review, as well as Samantha Guild, who's part of our programmatic review. We all get together, we look at what peer review has said, and said what the weaknesses and strengths are for each one of the applications, and then we make a recommended for funding list. Our outcome there is a funding recommendation. So we have patient advocates' voices at every level that's bringing it to us and understanding why it's important for patients for all of this science. The science is not done in a vacuum, except maybe if you're in space, okay? But here, science for us is not done in a vacuum. It's not science for science sake, okay? It's science for patient's sake, okay? So let's go to the next slide. If you're interested in becoming involved with the peer and programmatic review, you can go onto our website. The actual URL is shown right there. You have to be a melanoma survivor. You can also be a caretaker for some types of melanoma. You can be an active participant in advocacy, outreach, and support organizations nominated by your advocacy or outreach organization. You're going to express your viewpoints from a community viewpoint, not your personal perspective, but you will tell personal stories, which is fine, okay? And you also have an interest, you have an interest in expanding your knowledge of science. It's always good to have that. So you're looking for you're going to be putting together a nomination package, a complete nomination form, personal statement of advocacy, including your resume, and a letter of support from your organization. So let's go to the next slide. And my next slide is just questions. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. We have a new program book that has been published on our website. You can see our website right there. You can look through our program book. You'll see highlights of some of the awards that we made in FY19. FY20 is coming up in next week. So I'm open to answering any questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Donna. And I'm going to keep this slide up here for just a little bit so people can see. But I did see that we got a question that was dropped in here a little bit earlier. And so this question says, curious if the other funded cancers are justified through risk of military activity like sun and chemical exposure for melanoma. For example, what's the justification for pancreatic cancer?
That is its own program at this time. I'm not sure that it's an exposure type of justification, but it's more of a justification for military readiness. If you can expect that there is some mission readiness that might be affected by someone who might be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, or their family members diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. For instance, this even works for melanoma. If your spouse has been diagnosed with melanoma and you need to go to their appointments with them or take care of them while they're in treatment, then there's a possibility that if you're a service member, you might actually need to step away from your duty station to do this with them. So that is very, very important for you to consider mission readiness is part of how the justification for being within the military is part of that. So that's really an important part of this, I think.
Thank you, and absolutely. So while we're waiting, and again, just a reminder, if anybody has any questions for Dr. Kimbark before she departs us, please feel free to put those in the chat. I do have a couple comments that I'd like to read for you. First, we have a big thank you, such amazing work being done by the CDMRP, so thank you so much. And oh, this is a great question. So if somebody is interested in participating as a peer reviewer, how much time is needed in order to volunteer for that role?
Okay, so as a peer reviewer, your work is done in a very concentrated period of time. Like we'll have our peer review probably in December of next year. So, and it's all done virtually at this time, and will be done virtually through FY21. So that will continue, excuse me, through this year. So what it is that you will be assigned about 15 applications. You will only be reading, only required to read the abstracts, which is a 1-page, and a 1-page impact statement for each one of the applications that you are assigned. So you get about a 2-week period of time that you can review these, and then you give your strengths and weaknesses for each one, and then you also give some scores, and then we will have our peer review meeting, which is a virtual meeting. It's by Zoom, I think. I think we Zoom it. So sorry. So you will then have this virtual meeting where you'll be online for probably about 5 or 6 hours. I know it's a long stretch, but you'll go over each one of your applications and give your feedback on each one of your applications and score each one. So it's a really concentrated period of time, but then you're free for the whole rest of the year.
Thank you so much for that answer. Very helpful. And we have a couple of actual members here who have served as peer reviewers, and they said they've been honored to do so. Quick question for you, Donna. With our rare cancers, can you talk a little bit more on how people can get involved in ensuring that our rare subtypes are also covered under federal funding?
Yes, rare subtypes such as melanoma, uveal melanoma or acral melanoma and so on are covered by the melanoma research program. And in fact, we have a special notification in our program announcements to investigators that we are very, very interested in those types of rare melanomas. But I want to point out that rare melanomas can also, for FY21, be covered by the Rare Cancer Research Program. So you can actually apply to the the investigators can apply to the Rare Cancer Research Program, and some of the patient advocates here might be asked to participate in that program as well. Really, most will be done under the Melanoma Research Program because we're more focused on melanoma, and my heart is really with the Melanoma Research Program. So you will see us making special attention to make sure that we're funding those rare melanomas, where I'm not exactly sure that the Rare Cancer Program will be able to do that with their limited funds.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And as Donna, oh, go ahead.
Geneva just asked a question about, is there just one or multiple people chosen to serve per state or region? We actually have multiple people serving. I don't know about whether or not we do it by state or region. We actually do it a little bit by your organization. There are three main organizations, MRF, MRA, and AMAT Melanoma. So we try to spread it out, and there's also some other smaller organizations as well. So we try to spread it out by organization, but I do know that Melanoma Research Foundation has been a strong part of our peer review process.
And that is absolutely right. Geneva's question came very timely because I was just about to discuss as well that if you were interested in this opportunity, not only can you use the contact information that Donna provided and we had up on the screen, but you can also contact, you can reach out to me at the Melanoma Research Foundation, just email cdeisel@melanoma.org and let us know your interest, and we'll be happy to write you a letter of nomination. We have had definitely over 11 advocates involved in the past few, and you know, they've been part of helping to pick some of that research and help to see what goes on. So our patient's voice is pulled through the entire process, and it all begins here at Advocacy Days. And then, you know, just when you think that you can leave and go about your life, you are sitting down reviewing very highly, mostly highly excellent rated research grants and really helping out the community. So it's a very, very important program, and we're so happy to have Dr. Kimbark with us here to explain it. I don't see any other questions coming through. Dr. Kimbark, do you have anything, couple last words you would like to say before we log off?
Yes, just one more thing, actually two more things. I just want to say that this year, because we'll be having our peer reviews virtual, our panels are smaller, so that means we need more patient advocates. So we'll be recruiting more than we normally do, because on site we have bigger panels and longer days. So there's more opportunities this year, so please do apply. And I have a great team member, Elena Jos, who will work with you. And she is just phenomenal and will explain it a little bit better, and in fact, a lot better than I can. And also, I wanted to thank everybody for your attention. I know I kind of zoomed through things, but that's okay. If there's any questions, please feel free to contact myself or Casey, and we can clear everything up for you. I really appreciate everything that you do. And please, please, please be well and stay safe. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Kimbark. It was an honor to have you back again this year. I will let everyone know that we'll be meeting back at, I believe it's 12 o'clock for our next session, where we'll be joined by Adam Telefaro from Bristol Myers Squibb. He's also an assemblyman in New Jersey. We'll be joined by Senator Coons, a state senator from Ohio, and State Representative Gatos from Pennsylvania, to talk about the importance of your story. So please take this moment to have a restroom break, grab yourself something to eat if you'd like, and we'll see you all back here at noon. Thank you so much. Have a great day.